Hey guys, what's going on, friends, family? My name is Skylent, and we've been covering New World since I was actually invited like 2 years ago, something like that, to Irvine, California, Amazon Studios. I got to play it, and ever since then been under heavy NDA, but we finally have the curtain peeled back a little bit, and we're learning some new things. Now, even though I have played the game, and I technically have access, I don't play it, and I really don't cover it as much as other people because I want to experience it with you guys, but can't help it. You know, there's some exciting news, and I think you guys want to eat it up as well. So, New World has been promoting a lot of different mechanics, and we have this new one called the arenas. So, what does that entail? It's not PvP, actually. It's a PvE arena system. Some other games that are also heavily promoting that. I guess you can actually say, like, look at Monster Hunter, but that's Monster Hunter. Games like Dauntless, sure, but there's actually been some MMOs that have been trying to do that as well. So we actually have Blue Protocol that's heavily going to be utilizing that aspect. Also, you could debate Black Desert kind of does this, and the way the system actually works in terms of the gameplay flow and loop, yeah, it's going to sound a lot like Black Desert. So basically, you go throughout the world, you adventure, and you get a key that unlocks an arena, and then you have to go find the spot of the arena somewhere somehow, and then you go into an instance, and then you fight a boss. Now, BDO, you don't go into an instance, but yeah, that basically is how it works. You find a scroll somehow, some way, then you go to a spot on the map, then you open it, and you fight a boss with your team. This one, though, is an instanced arena, and that's kind of strange, because New World has been doing a lot of weird stuff in it's like almost like game modes, really, in their sandbox game. So you have your PvE elements, where it's like horde wave survival. You also have these open world dungeon-ish things, and now you're going to have instance PvE, and then you also have 50 versus 50 PvP, and then also there's kind of open world PvP. I hope they do a Coliseum. That's what I thought this update was going to be, but maybe they'll do that. I don't know, maybe they're going to have a dueling culture. I really love that in Albion, but that's kind of a double-edged sword, and let's actually talk about this. If they do have instanced PvE arenas, it might be kind of similar to Albion Online, which it actually works pretty well in Albion, but it was something of contention for the community. See, when you have a game that's supposed to focus on one type of gameplay, you need players actually funneled into that, such as the open world PvP in Albion. But when you have instance dungeons, and then you have like a Farmville mechanic and private islands, and you take away the open world building, and you take away stuff like that in a game like that, it becomes a totally different game, basically. Even though they're only adding mechanics, you're actually taking away from the overall player base circulating through the one main, or what used to be the main component of the game. So here, if we're going to have arenas and things like that, it can be seen as, okay, they're definitely becoming a little bit more Care Bear, but at the same time, if it is very challenging and if it is very difficult and rewarding, it could be super fun for a lot of people. I know a lot of people love that whole Monster Hunter style gameplay, jump in with a group, especially this one, because it does seem like we're getting at least a soft Holy Trinity with healers, tanks-ish kind of gameplay with this. So I think it could be something that's really revolutionary for people who just thought that this was going to be like a survival sort of PvP MMO. But at the same time, it is detracting from PvP, open world, and people really focusing on that. A couple other things also have me questioning what's going on with this, but we're going to read from the website and we're going to see what we got here. This is Arenas of the Ancient Guardians here. So there's going to be different arenas, there's going to be different bosses, stuff like that. And I'm sorry, I can't show you super epic gameplay like some people can, because I don't know, there's like NDA and stuff. But anyways, so let's go ahead and check this out. On your adventures and trials in Aeternum, which is the continent or the little area that you're going to be playing in the game, you're going to stumble upon mysterious and time-worn structures. Clearly constructs of the ancients. The true purpose of these arenas have been lost to time. Through unknown magic, apparently these ancients were able to bind some of the most powerful denizens within these structures. Even the daunting challenge of finding the proper key to access these arenas pales when compared to the martial trials that awaits any group of adventurers who dare enter. Once inside the arena, you're going to encounter one of the most powerful creatures, the Spriggan. At least that's the first one that's being shown off. Born of the land, it is a primal expression of the power of Azoth, whatever that means. Don't be fooled into thinking its gnarled limbs are stiff or its movement limited. This champion of the angry earth is as swift as it is deadly. Overcoming this foe will reward you greatly, but it is no small task. So that's the first boss, that's the first arena. There's going to be some sort of structure that's going to house a boss, and this boss happens to be the Spriggan. That's the first one. There's also a corrupted version that will attack in the giant corrupted breaches, but yeah. Anyways, it's a plant boss, And it actually looks like something that I would see in the Heart of Thorns inside of Guild Wars 2 or in many other games, but how it acts is very reminiscent of a very specific boss inside of Dark Souls 3. You literally cannot miss this boss. It's the first one. Anyways, as you slay particular enemies in New World and dig through the loot they drop, you'll occasionally come across a Spriggan Key. Along with the key comes specific coordinates on where you need to go and use it. Upon reaching your destination, you will find an ancient vine-encrusted pillar. From there, you can turn in your key and be teleported straight to the arena. Anyone grouped with you at the time will also be teleported if they're standing around the pillar. And once inside the arena, your battle against the terrifying Spriggan will begin. You'll only have a set amount of time to best this enemy, so you'll need to make sure you go in prepared. It's always wise before teleporting into the arena that you repair your weapons and armor and craft plenty of anything you think you might need. The Spriggan won't go down easy. So that's pretty exciting, and that reminds me a lot of how vanilla World of Warcraft dungeons worked. And this they didn't mention it, but I would love it. I'm just gonna say this. I personally would love it if these areas were in contested guild territories. If these structures, which are going to have amazing loot, if they could be created inside of an area that was a contested or wanted multiple people fighting over it, that'd be fantastic. It was a lot of fun in vanilla World of Warcraft when the Horde would, come to Shadowfang Keep. You were fighting them off as alliance or vice versa, stuff like that. So I really like that because you had to actually sit and wait for your teammates to kind of come and group. And so that environment of, making sure everyone's grouped together and that journey to get to that dungeon, hopefully, and this arena would allow for people to have a little bit of engaging content, I think, that just sort of organically sprang up. But if it doesn't, whatever, then I know that they're just really catering to the Monster Hunter community, especially looking at the fact that it is time-based, something that also the upcoming game Blue Protocol is going to also do. So we're gonna have to focus a lot on having a very debatably toxic community when it comes to these. These are probably the endgame raidish encounters. They're gonna be Dark Souls style encounters, but with multiple players. So it's going to be like, okay, we need the right DPS. We need the people who are actually good. We need the people who are actually serious. We only have so many keys. We only have so much time. We need to actually be legit. So we're going to need a proper composition, which seems like that's going to be an important aspect to the game. Reading on more. If you're skilled enough and maybe even a bit lucky, and you do manage to take down the Spriggan, you'll be handsomely rewarded for your efforts, period. I'm going to talk about that real quick. We're really going to mention that. Please hang on to that sentence that I just said. Next. Success in an arena awards high quality equipment, but in rare cases, they can also award legendary gear with powerful equipment traits. Some of the most powerful gear in the game comes from defeating these arenas. So this is a big thing that has me feeling strange, and I'm not uncomfortable with RNG mechanics being a part of progression. RNG in Monster Hunter, or maybe even Path of Exile, but mainly Monster Hunter or debatably World of Warcraft. Some of World of Warcraft, it works because basically, even though it's RNG, you're basically like, you can just constantly re-challenge the monsters, you constantly re-fight them, and the idea is that you need to become better as a group at killing this monster quickly, so then you get the gear. It's less about just one and doneing the monster because, frankly, that's not too hard all the time, but doing it well, doing it efficiently, that's the big point. However, in this game, in Amazon Studios' case, you can't just re-challenge it whenever you want. There is a huge penalty. You actually use a consumable, you use your key, and then you're done. So this is going to be something that's taken very seriously, and depending on how random the rewards are, we might have to fight this thing 100 times to get like a full suit of gear, just so that you're one person who's going to go fight in the competitive, remember, 50 versus 50 competitive esport essentially. This is going to be big. This is going to be really big, and the RNG has me very, very scared for this game. Is it just going to be brute force, like time over skill? Though, I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? There's definitely a weird balance with that concept. But then again, to an extent, in World of Warcraft, you can't just raid constantly every day, nonstop. You can't just go back and forth every day. And a lot of times, even in Monster Hunter, you do have limited time events and things like that too, or even consumed events. So with the keys, I guess you're going to have people who just farm the keys, you're going to have people who just farm the bosses, and you're going to have people who dish out the gear, unless it's bind on equip. So depending on how this whole equipment thing works, it could really suck because people who are good at PvE aren't necessarily the people who want to PvP, but you want the people with the best gear to PvP. So hopefully you can have people like me who would be the PvEers who I just smack this boss. I'm good at Dark Souls games like that. I'll just smack the shit out of this boss, but then I can take the gear that I earn and give it to the PvP players. I think that would be really fantastic. Continuing on, if the time runs out or everyone in your party has been stomped under the crushing power of the Spriggan, your experience in the arena will come to an end. All players will be unceremoniously teleported back to the ancient pillar where your encounter began. Want another go at besting the Spriggan? You will need to track down another Spriggan Key out in the wilds of Aeternum. So that's right, guys, before you even fight this thing probably once, you're probably going to at least want to farm up like 5, maybe. You know, you're going to want to farm up a bunch. In fact, I really wouldn't doubt if it's just somebody's goal in the guild to just be the key farmer. And that actually sounds really exciting because the idea of not just farming a boss PvE, but going out in the world and farming the open world dungeons gives someone a job. That's something that I really enjoy inside of Albion Online, is going to certain areas, farming certain items. And I think a lot of you guys do this in a lot of MMOs. You kind of plot out, plan out, get your Excel spreadsheet, you know, okay, what rotations do I need in what areas in order to have the highest chance of getting this rare item drop? And then you give that to your guild, or you use it to make a lot of money to promote your guild or your gameplay or what have you. I think it could be really fun, but it could also be really toxic, for sure. So there's also a Q&A with the team. The art and design team talking about the aesthetic and showcasing this creature. To be honest, I'm going to skip a lot of that. I really only care about mechanics, and as pretty as this game is, a lot of the people feel like it definitely lacks a little bit of impact in terms of overall its magic, in terms of overall how fantastic. I just think it doesn't appeal to people who like World of Warcraft or more fantastic or anime. It's more of like a survival aesthetic, but with this monster, I 100% am getting a cross-promotion kind of vibe of Dark Souls and Guild Wars 2, actually. So Guild Wars 2, straight out of Heart of Thorns, I'm pretty sure I've seen a creature that looks just like this. And then the actual mechanics, especially the extending arm or branch attack, is just like the first boss in Dark Souls 3. There's actually so much Dark Souls inside of New World that I wish I could explore with you guys, but I'm sure we will whenever early access hits. But yeah, if you guys like Dark Souls style combat, that's what this fight is. It's very clear, but with sort of a Monster Hunter-y twist, especially with the grouping. And then the aesthetic overall, we're seeing New World become much more magic. Before, really seriously, when this was first announced, it was low fantasy. I would dare say, yeah, it was low fantasy. Like it was very more survival oriented. It felt like a survival game. Now, this is definitely breaching onto something like Guild Wars 2, where it starts out kind of with like a realism, and then it gets crazy. And we're seeing some of that crazy right here, but with a darker tone, a darker touch, with a little bit of Souls-like inspiration. So anyways, guys, it does look like we are going to have, I would just want to say, just from the footage, it looks like we're going to have kind of a soft Trinity. So you're going to have probably the team composition is going to be a melee DPS. We're going to have a tank-oriented class. We're going to have a support-oriented class, as well as a ranged DPS class, and possibly someone who maybe is like the mage or whatever, who is built specifically to kind of handle the weaknesses against the boss themselves. But overall, the encounter, what it looks like it's going to have a DPS check. You're going to have to actually DPS to this down. Overall, you have a time limit, so you're going to need to do damage, which means you're going to need to be geared well enough, and you're going to need to know what the fuck you're doing, and you can't be knocked around too much. This monster has a lot of knockarounds, knockbacks, and fuck yous, so that's going to be happening. And then also, it can regen. It can actually go into a shell and heal itself, in which case, that's it. That's just the DPS check itself. You need to DPS it down during that time. So constantly dodging, ducking, weaving, using stamina as your main primary gauge with blocking and dodging. It's going to be all super important. But again, that's actually something that we see a ton inside of, obviously, Dark Souls, but then mainly like Guild Wars 2. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think I could probably over-promote this and shower it with candy, but I'm not going to do that for you guys. I just want to tell you like how it's really going to be, what it's really going to feel like. And I'm just going to kind of end the video with like just pure opinion here. I think this is really awesome. I think it's going to be really fun. How it is delivered definitely depends on how much fun I have or how fair it's going to be, or if it's just basically a loot box that we have to smack down. If it's just a pinata, that's going to suck. If this is all just basically a loot box, I'm not going to like that, which turns out that's the case in a lot of especially Eastern games, looking at UBDO. But if this is a genuinely fun encounter that generally rewards fairly, more often than not, then I think it's going to be good. If it's like trash, oh, we finally got this legendary weapon. No, that's garbage. Please make it more fair, more balanced, a more even curve, so that it's actually worth the time and effort. Hopefully it actually is challenging. They do say that they want it to be challenging, and I believe it. But also, I gotta say, I really love giant monsters. I love it, open world content, and I love roaming mobs. I love finding rare mobs, things like that. So the fact that this isn't just a rare roaming mob that you have to find and then get your guild to attack, which happens in a few very rare games, but it should be in more MMO because that's what makes MMO special. This is more like BDO. It's more safe, more sound, and at the same time kind of compartmentalizes the game so that a PvE player can just be a PvE player. So is that good? Is that bad? Is that to my taste? I don't know. I'm gonna have to play the game, but I'm just saying that I really want to see more giant monsters, and I also want to just know more about the open world content. But this thing, if this is an aside and not something that replaces mechanics, then that's awesome. So we'll see how the bosses go from here. If this is the first boss and it looks like a Dark Souls level boss, then that's great. But also, I want to see the other stuff. I want to see more gimmicks, and I want to see more, giant monsters, dragons, things like that. That's the kind of shit that we really live for in MMOs, right? And when you go and play Monster Hunter, a game like Dauntless, fighting giant monsters with a group of friends is just super cool. And if we have an instanced area, then we can have more nuanced animations and mechanics. Oh, that's also one thing to say, is that I do think that this monster design will probably be very fun because this is specifically instanced. One thing that you cannot do in the open world is have these level of animations, this level of AI, this level of really gameplay when it comes to an encounter inside an MMO. Just not going to work. You won't have Monster Hunter level AI inside an MMO proper. Not to say you can't have good encounters, but with this and with their mechanics in mind, in terms of the combat, I think it makes a lot of sense. So I'm still looking forward to it, definitely. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. But that's it, guys. All I can ask is to keep the hype alive. I'm Skylent. I'll see you again next time.